any product, whether it's AI or any other product, if the quality starts to drop, they eventually will stay away from it. They won't actually use it. So you need to make sure, certainly with AI, because there's a whole element of trust. Clinical trials now has evolved to be really part of a patient's care, because they're able to get quicker access to novel treatments that will treat major impacting illnesses. It's not the accuracy that you're going to expect and demand. There's a lot more work goes in to actually producing a product that they're going to trust and want to use.
Gerard, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Mark. Delighted.
Gerard, tell us a little bit about you and your role at ICON.
My name is Gerard Quinn. I'm the Vice President of Innovation and Informatics. I work for ICON. We're a clinical research organisation. We have a 35-year history. And we are now the leaders in the industry for doing clinical research services for all the top pharmaceutical and biotech firms around the world. We've grown now to 40,000 staff. And my team, very much what we do is we drive innovation technically within our clinical trial processes. And one of the groups within my team is our AI Centre of Excellence. So we're really sort of driving the use and adoption and application of AI across the clinical trial spectrum.
We were kind of thinking about the prep call, what we should cover and things like that. And genuinely, we could cover so many different types of things. But really today, it would be lovely to kind of talk about going from that idea, kind of proof of concept, kind of that understanding the pilots, MVP, actually to deployment and production, and kind of giving people a bit of an understanding to what that journey is actually like. Because what we're finding more and more is people are in this kind of pilot purgatory.
Yeah.
Where it kind of feels like a science experiment because they haven't got it to be able to scale it. And it's particularly, frustrating, particularly challenging for people's morale because you're not necessarily going to that next stage, even though the endeavour, the desire, the passion is there to do it. It'd be lovely just to talk us through how you come up with these different types of problems that are worth solving, and getting buy-in from the business would be lovely.
Yeah, so I think within our industry, we're a highly regulated industry. We run clinical trials for all the big pharma firms and biotech firms around the world. So we've probably an even bigger challenge and a bigger hurdle to get through to be able to produce solutions that the business buys into and adopts and trusts. But I suppose the journey we take, we are hand in hand with the business every step of the way. So we typically take them through a triage process where they would have the embryonic thought of an idea where they'd have a challenge to their business process, or they're looking to see would AI add value in a particular area. And we take them through a triage process. And part of that is to understand their business process, but also then to understand the context and rationale behind the data that drives that process. And that's key. And it's key if you look at how you build out a team to be able to accomplish problems. One of the big things you need to make sure as part of your team, you have that business analysis arm to your team, that you're actually able to work with the business to extract out their business process, but also the data that drives it. Because we all know everything in AI is trained by, fine-tuned by, and fed by data. So you need to make sure you've got good quality data that's driving the desired outcomes. So it's working with the team on that triage exercise to take them through a detailed review of their process, what data points are driving it, what's driving the outcomes in their manual process, but also in that part of that triage is working through what is their desired end state if AI works.
And that simple process, or an awful lot, it's a complicated process, that's just kind of basically a workflow of how people are kind of just coming to work. It could be, in the simplest terms, that's driving to work each day, the route or map that you go each day, and you're trying to give them 5-10 minute shortcut to reach their destination sooner, but across different types of tasks.
True. And one of the outcomes that we certainly try and aim for is we always have that human in the loop at the end of the process. So we have our subject matter experts within our company who are at the end of the outcome to decide whether they move forward with that outcome. And it's trying to make sure that the AI is actually presenting them with the data to drive that decision-making quicker. Also providing them richer, deeper data that they're able to make a better informed decision overall. So that's typically one of the outcomes we see that colleagues within the organization want. They want to be able to get to that decision-making point quicker, but they want better data to be able to make a better decision overall.
It's quite interesting because you kind of talked about that business analysis skills for those data scientists or working with those leaders. Even though the business leaders are doing the work every day, or the team leader is doing the workflow every day, they're probably not necessarily the best people to articulate what they're doing all the time, because sometimes you can be just so thick in the weeds that it's just become second nature. You need someone just to step back and actually guide you through, well, actually, here's all the different specific steps that you have.
And actually challenging them on it to say, is this how your process works? And getting that check and balance from them. To
confirm that, because having that kind of tacit knowledge in your head is one thing, but it's very, very hard to scale an organization or to do something really efficiently. If it's up in your head, you're almost trying to kind of scale that second brain to get it out there and actually try to make it optimal. Yeah. Because I think there's so many of us, particularly leaders, walking around feeling like we're just the ones that can do things in a certain way, or it's the best approach. But actually, when you take a step back, there's multiple different ways to look at that.
Yeah. And there's another thing as well, that when we're working through the process, we keep our sort of North Star on evidence of value and earned value. I was on a customer call recently, and one of our key customers turned around and used the term earned value. And what they outlined was industry, society has taken a big gamble on AI, but we actually now need to see it delivering value and delivering the benefit. So we were sold the dream. It does A, B, and C quicker, faster, better data. But are we getting the benefit? So at all times when we're working through that triage, we're identifying what they're going to classify as a win, what they're going to classify as evidence of value from that outcome.
So not just what you perceive as value, but what the customer is actually saying, this is value. So agreeing that, because one of the most challenging things is managing expectations, but you can only manage expectations if you're measuring the same value point.
Exactly. And to get out of, if you view our process, we go through the triage, we enter the proof of concept. And the aim of the proof of concept is to produce that minimal viable product. And then if the business buys that and they're willing to fund it, you productionize it. But to get out of the POC phase, you need to have delivered that evidence of value. So the business need to outline at the start, for us to invest in this, for us to trust it, for us to want to use it, we need the following markers to come out.
And I think it's also important just to explain to people the importance of context, of context gathering, and what goes on behind the scenes to start to understand how a business really operates versus a well thought out assumption versus really understanding what kind of work goes in behind that.
Yeah, so as part of our exercise that we go through a sort of a detailed process step with them to understand the rationale and context behind their process and their data. And that really helps us understand what data and data features within that data is driving the outcome. Because that will often end up being the data points and the data features that are going to be key in driving the outcome from the AI solution and models. And also, it helps in a significant way when you're getting down to the fine tuning, because within our team, we adopt what's called a hybrid intelligence model. So we don't just apply LLMs to a data lake and expect an outcome, because it doesn't happen. the quality, the outcome you get, hallucinations, etc. So we basically provide a sort of hybrid intelligence model where we ground the outcomes with traditional machine learning and AI, really to produce the accuracy of the outcome. And it's that accuracy and being able to present that accuracy back to the business that you're literally saying, we're identifying and able to deliver your evidence of value. We clearly understood the rationale and the context behind your data because we're delivering the outcomes and the benefit overall. And that's where they take on the adoption of the solution. They trust it, they trust the outcomes because they see the accuracy, and they're willing to take it forward because they're seeing the evidence of value. And over time, you get really what is known as earned value, where through data, you're able to compare the pre and post world and show the benefit overall.
One of the challenges with failed AI projects, and there's multiple, is inaccessibility to data, dirty data, political infighting to say who should actually have the data for the rights. And then you've kind of got working on that kind of wrong problem, right? And making sure that wouldn't it be cool to their projects as part to the side, and you're really kind of specific on that area. When you get that MVP and then you're going to look to do something bigger and bigger, how important is it to continue to get that leadership buy-in? Because sometimes there can be unexpected outcomes or unexpected obstacles that get in the way.
It's critical that you engage with your business partners throughout the process. So if you look at one of the solutions that we recently created a minimal viable product for, which was the digitization of the protocol. And really what that's doing is a protocol in a clinical trial is a very large document, complex, packed with information, and it's typically 90 pages to 150 pages plus. Dense with information. And we've basically developed AI that's masking the confidential information, extracting the information that's pertinent out of that, and actually being able to do intelligent automation and AI with that data. And it was working through the business when we worked through with our labs organization, being able to go step by step with them along the journey. We'd various stop points along that journey to show evidence of value step by step. And that built up huge trust and support with them. And it wasn't just with the team, it was with the team and their leadership. So we had milestone points where along that POC journey, we were stopping, showing the progress we're making, but explaining we've still got fine tuning of the model to go. We've still got more data to consume. The model's going to improve, but also getting a checkpoint from them to say, actually, it's good, but to be great, it would be amazing if it also did X and Y, and us to be able to build that in as one of the outcomes. And you have them as a true partner every step of the way. And it means when you get to the end point and you've got that minimal viable product and you're doing that demo, there's no surprises at all in the room. There's delight in the room because they're getting the outcome, they actually see it. But everyone from the team and their leadership has been step by step with you in that process, that there's full buy-in and support. And if we look at that project that I talked about around the protocol, there's full buy-in. They want the productionization. They want the solution because they've been with us along that evolution journey and saw the outcome getting better and better and better as we went along that journey. But also we explained to them that's the life cycle we have to take.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. If anyone's in the kind of world of sales, they understand the difference between you trying to really want a solution for your customer, but the customer actually really wants the solution as well.
Yeah.
It's night and day in terms of you both working together to get that solution.
Exactly.
And because you've really well defined the problem in the first place, but managed expectations consistently along the way. And I always kind of think of it as a kind of Sherpa to say, okay, we're going to sprint now, we're going to rest now. This is where the bodies are carried, and you're trying to kind of go. So when you go to scale and kind of deploy and make it, out into the wild, that kind of, what are the stages then that you need to be kind of wary for? I'm thinking of things like drift. I'm thinking, what do you need to manage internally to the business users to say, okay, this is what's going to actually happen now when it goes across from a scale enterprise level? So
when we basically produce that minimal viable product and the business buys it and is willing to fund the productionization, what we go through is the productionization project. We bring them through and they're typically doing user acceptance testing to buy off on the final product. But that isn't where our journey ends. The minute the production solution goes live, we actually move the whole solution into model maintenance. So our team continually fine-tune the actual model. They test the outcomes, because any user of any product, whether it's AI or any other product, if the quality starts to drop, they eventually will stay away from it. They won't actually use it. So you need to make sure, certainly with AI, because there's a whole element of trust, you need to make sure your users at all times during the use of the production system understand the outcomes. They're delighted by the outcomes. They trust the outcomes, because then they continue to use it. And should they come back then to say, we'd like the product evolved to grow, they're coming back to you because they trust what you've done. They trust that you're able to maintain the product as it moves forward. So the model maintenance is a key process step. You don't just get to your minimal viable product, productionize the solution, and walk off the field. You must do the maintenance.
And one of the things that I regularly see from Gartner or McKinsey we speak about is 100 days for an implementation, but 100 days to develop new behaviors, to actually use it, keep using it, getting feedback, going on the loop. Because just because it's there and available and ready to go doesn't mean people are just going to start to adopt it. We've all got treadmills, or have got rid of treadmills in our house, because we know it's good, but we just don't get the high, or we don't get the value, or maybe we're a little bit intimidated.
Yeah, so to me, the implementation of AI is actually, and I think this is where people miss this step and this key step. It's a fundamental process change and culture change. So fine, there's the technical piece. You've implemented a technical solution. It works. You're getting the outcomes. You do the model maintenance. But separate from that, there's the whole process change. And it's how people adopt and take on that change in their process overall. So as part of your overall change story for implementing the solution, you need to work hand in hand with your customers and our business colleagues to make sure they adopt to that change. And certainly if you're looking at a lot of the solutions we're doing now have AI agents, agentic AI, the digitization of the protocol is agentic AI. There's significant process changes there. And with the digitization of the protocol, where we worked with the labs had a process where they took the protocol, they worked through each of the pages to extract the analytical tests that they had to perform in the labs. They then basically had to confirm that those were the correct tests coming from the document, and then key it into their lab system. And that was a defined process for them for many, many, many years. What we've now developed is, and that used to take days, that actual process. And what we've developed now is the AI within 4 minutes extracts the information from the protocol and works out the analytical tests. A human basically does a quality control check to confirm that they are the correct tests and they're the right tests for the trial. And then automatically we will flow through to the system. So that's a fundamental culture change and process change for that team, where they've had colleagues extracting that information out and feeling comfortable about it. So part of the whole journey is building your users' trust in the outcomes.
And then, do we know how long it would have taken some of their colleagues to do some of that work versus now the 4 minutes of the AI actually?
On average, depending on the complexity of the protocol, you were talking 2.5 up to 6 days. And now it's down to 4 minutes. Now, you still have the human quality control check. And, in my view, with all AI, you need that human engagement to basically verify, to continue that level of trust. And as the technology evolves, it could get to the point where you can lessen that. But I think where we are now in that evolution cycle with AI, you do need that human engagement and the human in the loop to continue the level of trust in the outcomes.
But in terms of just even a use case to say, you're going to come in on a Monday and probably finish on a Friday, or maybe you might do extra work on a Saturday just to complete a task. And then you have this tool that's now going to do it in a couple of minutes. Still with the human in the loop, it's just really allowing people to just work on better things.
Totally. It means, if you look at the example I quoted, the people doing that manual review of that document and leafing through the pages and being able to extract out the tests, those are highly skilled, highly qualified people. And actually being able to move them from that manual task onto actually doing work within the labs and doing the analytical tests is where they probably want to be, and where they want their career to be. So it's actually been able to automate out those highly manual tasks and really move the value point of the colleagues to a higher value point.
And then messages like that, I say, quickly start to go viral, right? Because people can actually talk about that as a proper use case to say, well, here's the problem, here's the impact, there's the solution. Now we can work on different tasks. And the world of healthcare, people's lives are on the back of this.
Oh yeah, I always say as an industry, to be in an industry, the one I'm in, is extremely lucky, because when you're implementing AI, you're actually seeing the direct benefit to patients. So clinical trials, if you go back in time, were a process that a pharmaceutical or a biotech firm did to test the efficacy of a drug and get it approved and then be able to supply the drug to patients. Clinical trials now has evolved to be really part of a patient's care, because they're able to get quicker access to novel treatments that will treat major impacting illnesses. And being able to actually drive efficiency into how those trials start, how quick they can get started, how quick patients can be engaged with those trials, that's a direct impact to a patient's life. And I think everyone at this stage will have someone in their family who's been impacted by a illness where a clinical trial can add significant value to the quality of that person's life. And actually being able to deploy technology and AI to drive efficiency and speed, increase in quality around the data is just fantastic, because you see a direct impact to the speed of execution of a trial, and you know straight away patients are going to be on those trials quicker, getting treatment.
It blows my mind that only 5% of our listeners actually subscribe to the podcast. We've got one favour to ask. Please, can you subscribe to the podcast? If you like our content, you subscribing will make a huge difference to the guests that we can get on the show, and also be a voice for AI applied across Ireland, but doing it the right way. Now back to the show. Tell us a little bit more about some of the other projects that you have, like Smart Draft, OneSearch.
Yeah, so if you look at how really we sort of follow our process and how we engage with the teams, if you look at the OneSearch product and the Smart Draft product, they're actually aligned as part of a process flow. So if you look at a clinical trial, once the trial is awarded and the protocol is handed over to the teams, one of the first steps they have to do is identify the clinical trial sites and the clinical trial investigators that are going to run those. And those are clinics. And they're basically the clinics that are going to go out and recruit the patients for the trials. But it's been able to make sure you recruit the best performing sites and the best performing investigators for those trials. So that was our actually first AI product that we brought out to assist the colleagues within our organization when doing trials for our customers. And we implemented AI across a number of areas, whether it was identifying the sites, the countries, the investigators, the site equipment at those sites, diversity within the trials as well. So we've all different AI models built in to that product. And it's our most mature product. And if you look at what I referred to earlier around earned value, we have data now that backs up where we've seen a 53% improvement in the median time with getting a site engaged on a trial. We're also seeing a 50% drop in non-performing sites. Now, a non-performing site on a trial could be you engage a site and they fail to recruit a patient, or they recruit one, and you have to maintain that site for the entire trial because you've one patient engaged. And a lot of money and time goes into mobilizing a site, getting it ready, installing the equipment and the testing equipment and the training of the staff at the site around the trial. and they may never recruit a single patient for the trial. So being able to use AI to identify the best performing sites and the best performing investigators who are doctors at those sites and the clinical teams adds significant value. But then if you look at and we worked with the teams very closely in implementing that solution, and it delivered significant value. If you then move on to the next step, you've identified the sites, you've identified the team that are going to work at those sites. You now need to legally contract the actual site. And that's the next pain point that the teams had. So it shows our sort of process of working with the teams. We're working along their process to actually identify true pain points and opportunities. So with the contracting process, what typically happens there, and as ourselves as an organization, we're running the clinical trials for our customers, we would engage with our customer, we'd engage with the site, and we'd basically act as the brokers. So we'd in the traditional process, we get the template, we share the template with our customer, they make a few changes, it comes back to us, we reflect those changes, it goes out to the site, and they make the changes. And as we all know, a lawyer loves a pen, so they like to make changes. And that starts to form an iterative loop, going around and around and around. And the other complexity you have to it is the customer would typically want the contract in English. The site can be anywhere in the world and may prefer it in local language. So you have the language transfer as well going on. So you can see with every cycle, it's a significant amount of time to reflect those changes and share it back with the relevant stakeholders. What we're doing with our Smart Draft product is using AI to build out draft version 1 based on precedent. And it's been able to use AI to look at, well, what language and clause terms was used between that given customer and that given site the last time they engaged. And the aim would be that you cut down the number of iteration loops and cycles. And again, get that site contracted quicker into the trial so they can get on with the job of recruiting patients.
Yeah. It's so multifaceted and it's all connected like dominoes.
Yeah.
You can have these short, quick wins can impact so many different things down the line. And I think people can really underestimate the preparation that goes into even getting one patient. And then those challenges that are actually around that. Just kind of switching gears. Have you been surprised over the last couple of years with how AI has just ballooned as a term? How people are just using interchangeably, the amount of different companies using it, introducing to their products or services, and how it's just really become out there. And on the flip side, is it kind of frustrating that you're talking to a lot of different types of people who don't necessarily understand the limitations of the technology, but then also the opportunities around the technology, but it's still quite embryonic in some ways?
So I suppose the best example I can really give there is, as part of my job, one of the things I do is I speak to our customers on a regular basis because they want to know what are we doing with AI. And if I go back to late 2022, early 2023, we had a number of products done. And I think we had about three or four out there. And we were speaking to customers, and the calls were all wow calls because it was new. And we were making progress, and we were one of probably the few that were getting out of that POC bubble and into a production product and able to demonstrate its value. And those calls have morphed really from 2023 up to 2025, where back in 2023, it was a wow and a plus factor. Now it's if you're not in AI, you're not getting work, because the companies are looking for a clinical research organization that's efficient, that's lean, that actually has adopted AI and is adopting AI into key process steps. So the conversation has completely evolved to an expectation. So if you go back to 2023, it was a surprise and delight and a wow moment. Now it's they expect, and every time they have a call with you, they are expecting evolution and movement forward. And they want to see the adoption of traditional machine learning, AI agents, agentic AI. They want to see that applied within the industry overall. To your second point, it is a struggle because people think at times it's easy. And it's not an easy task to take someone's thought process or pain point or opportunity and actually take it the way through a triage, a POC, a minimal viable product, and get into a production solution that people are using. But as part of our triage process and how we engage with the business and make them part of the team in every part of that process, we're actually educating them about the steps we have to go through. So, you see at times they think, okay, you just get one of the LLM-based products, Gemini, ChatGPT, just apply it to data and it comes out with fantastic answers. It's not the accuracy that you're going to expect and demand. There's a lot more work goes in to actually producing a product that they're going to trust and want to use. And there's a whole fine-tuning exercise that goes on. There's a grounding exercise that goes on using traditional machine learning and AI methods. And it's when you're taking your audience through that process and they're part of the team, at the end of that, they have a much stronger appreciation for the level of effort to produce the outcomes that they expect.
But also the costs, right? So you're, in one end, you're going, yes, I want this to be a tremendous success. What if 10,000 people start using, the agents in a really, flippant way, and suddenly these costs just start to dial up really quickly, right? So you're trying to dial it back and explain to people to say, this is the tokens, this is how it works, trialing it out, and then trying to have some type of 3, 6, 9 month projection. I know the costs are getting lower all the time, but it's very, very challenging to actually know, will it be massive uptake, will it not, what's the adoption like, and how much would that bottom line cost us?
And it is, and it's working through as well. Like if you look at a lot of the solutions, and we've 10 products out now, and as you work through them, we've always tried to focus in on a defined group. We've never gone for the huge audience solution where, like if you look at our company, we've 40,000 staff. We've never gone after a product that says it's for 40,000 staff. We've looked at our feasibility and study startup processes. We've looked at our lab processes where you're talking about a defined group that have an opportunity or a pain point they want addressed and fixed. So by that way, you're sort of managing expectations around cost because it's a defined set of users overall. But yeah, it is an area that has to be managed around making sure you're making the best use of it. The other piece that goes back to the point I mentioned earlier around evidence of value and earned value. We are going to see that becoming the big talking item in 2026. I think the big pieces in 2026, certainly within my industry, we're going to start seeing audits around AI in probably late this year, going into next year, because I think the regulatory authorities are getting up to speed with where AI is, and they need to understand how they're going to be able to challenge and ask questions and what they're going to look for. So see that becoming a part of the industry. But the other piece as well is people are going to start to want and demand to see evidence of value and earned value. They're going to want to see the data to say, right, this used to be the cost of doing business before. We've now spent a lot of money and time and resources implementing this AI solution. I want to see the change. And it's making sure that people have that as their North Star as they're going through that process.
And I think what people can underestimate is if you have an audit, how much time is taken to deal with that audit. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't been building the train tracks the correct way the whole way through, having a consistent golden thread, you're in a world of hurt. And you're going to be flipping and flapping to try to go and come up with some type of solution. So having that consistent approach and being able to clearly articulate that through all these different steps is so incredibly important for you as an organization, but then your customer as well, because they're going to be impacted by all this too. So yeah, I think this is going to be very, very big in 2026. And even on a more practical, basic level, I think we're going to have a tsunami of new products and services. Could be as simple as like a DocuSign that says, we've now got AI in it. Please accept our new terms. And then you've got someone just accepting the terms for an enterprise-wide. And it's like, okay, well, now suddenly we're in a different ballgame because we've accepted these terms, and then they're going to be onto our employees, potentially onto our customers. So we need someone actually looking at all these terms and conditions from the vendors that we're accepting, because it's going to impact so many parts of our business. Yeah,
and I think with the EU AI Act really starting to bite in now as far as its regulation and its steps. The whole area of governance around AI within organizations, and it's not just within our industry, which is a highly regulated industry, it's right across the spectrum of industries, that the regulation is going to become a key feature. And you really got to look that as you work through implementing the use of AI within an organization, there really isn't a shortcut process. You need to make sure you follow those steps, you've got all the evidence, the documentation, and you're able to explain to a entity or a body how something produces the outcome. It's not a black box where you feed data in, something comes out at the end, you don't know why it came out, but it looks good. You need to understand what data features are driving what outcomes and what change in your AI models to produce the end outcome. And it's having that body of evidence that you're going to need to be comfortable as regulation starts to kick in.
Gerard, thank you very much for your time
today. Thank you very much. Fantastic, Mark.
At AI Ireland, we're helping over 1 million people become literate using artificial intelligence. And we do this in a variety of different ways. The easiest way is our AI literacy program, where we do a 60 to 90 minute program via virtual Zoom or Microsoft Teams, where we teach the rules of the road of AI, from basic business concepts to ethical and resourceful decisions on how you actually use AI every day. This is our literacy foundation. The second way we use AI training is within our workshops. These are either virtual or in-person workshops where executive leaders come and use some of the AI tools that we make available for them, that they can actually start to take their own documents and reimagine savings of time and energy, but taking away friction from the work that they do each day. Later on, we actually empower different departments, HR, finance, sales, marketing, operations, and start to utilize AI across relevant use cases to upskill their different types of departments. If you're interested and ready to go on your AI journey, we'll be able to showcase over 700 applications of applied AI about how you can actually stop reinventing the wheel and start using AI for your organization today. If you want to start out and find out a little bit about the golden thread of activities that we've got to allow you to start to utilize AI straight away, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll give you a good comprehensive overview about the arts of the possible, minus the hype, purely applied. See you then.